I have 5 books for you, and I am going to tell you about them while sitting in my garden, because it's a lovely day. Now, first one up is Naturalist of Amsterdam from Melissa Ashley, and that comes to us from Affirm Press. Oh, goodness gracious me. Now, some of you will remember The Birdman's Wife, which was a big favourite a while back. And I think this one very much sort of resonates with that one. Ashley always writes women at the centre of her narratives and women in history who may have been forgotten. This one follows the life of Maria Sibylla Merian, who was the first female naturalist from Amsterdam. And we are back in, I get all my dates wrong, so I'm going to look at my notes because I don't like making mistakes. We're back in 1680s. Merian has been written about quite a lot. I mean, her works are known historical artifacts. And she was, in this book, we are really looking at this larger-than-life woman from the perspective of her daughter Dorothea. So the narrative is told to us from Dorothea's point of view. And I suppose a lot of what I got from this was that if you're living with someone who is an absolute force of nature, how do you establish your own identity? So it's a book as much about Dorothea and the work that she did that accompanied her mother's work, how very much she reflects her mother's sort of attitudes, her curiosity, her artistic talent, even though you sort of feel that Dorothea is constantly sort of dumbing herself down. It's a superb, intricate, elaborate, very detailed, dense, riveting story of both mother and daughter. And in there, the episodes of Dorothea's life, her loves, her losses, her relationship with her sister, all the different things that happened to her. And it makes for an absolutely absorbing read. Highly, highly, highly recommend that one. Second up, I have Mother and Daughter Murder Night from Nina Simon. And this one comes to us from William Morrow. That's I love this, a murder mystery. And it's sort of mother and daughter, really, set in a setting I knew nothing about, the Elkhorn Slough out on Monterey Bay in, is that Los Angeles? Yeah. We have 3 generations of women. And Nina Simon has a lot of fun, particularly with the older Lana, who is Lana Rubicon. Great name. And we kind of find that she's contrasting the other 2 characters against her. So Lana Rubicon has set up an empire in real estate. She's sharp, she's street smart, she's polished, and you can tell there's a ruthless sort of business shark in there. And you feel that her daughter Beth is unlike her and may have been a disappointment, hard to tell. And Beth's own daughter Jack has a bit of both. Beautifully kind of balanced that. To keep it short, Lana ends up needing post-operative care and she ends up having to stay with her daughter Beth and granddaughter Jack. Jack is mad on the kayaking, and on one of the tours that she leads out in the kind of these sort of complicated waterways, comes across a body. The body turns out to be a young activist who had been connected with a big sort of landowning, wealthy family nearby, and things become very complicated as Jack becomes implicated. Great sassy detective, lots of having to fit into each other, and can these 3 women live in harmony, because Lana doesn't make that very easy, but oh my goodness, it's well worth the read. Great fun read there. Another one that I found great fun comes to us from Catherine Chidgey, is The Pet. Chidgey's written a lot, New Zealand writer, and I think her last one, Remote Sympathy, was up definitely for, I think don't get me wrong, Bailey Gifford Women's Prize. Superb writer. This one was no exception. From Europa. This, I think, it's been said, nothing new. Very much the, if you remember Muriel Sparks, the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, we have this school set up in New Zealand, sort of 12-year-olds, mixed class, and they have a fabulous teacher, Mrs. Price, who has them all hanging off her every word, basically. They think she's the bee's knees, and she gives, and kind of, you feel that she sort of maybe plays games, but she's a bit unreadable. But the kids all think she is, stop the lights, she's the best thing out there. Our protagonist, or the kind of our perspective, is young Justine, whose mother died not too long ago, and who herself is epileptic and had this under control, but now with this new sort of grief, is having epileptic fits. And for this reason, maybe her the attention, or the sort of fierce, bright eye of Mrs. Price lands on Justine, and she makes of her, you feel, a kind of a project. Meets the father. He runs an antique business. So it is a book about, on one level, second chances. But you feel that might be becoming a thing. And meanwhile, in the classroom, precious objects are starting to go missing, and Mrs. Price is trying to keep a handle on this. And Justine's best friend, Amy Fong, finds herself in the crossfire of all of this. And I think it's a very interesting book about how you can manipulate people, and where your reality is, and what is your reality like at 12? Are you seeing through the smoke and mirrors, or how easily are you sort of seduced into believing things that may or may not be true? I found it absolutely intriguing, and I do highly recommend that as a very different sort of read. Things come mostly good. Not saying too much. Now, next up, you all know I love me Irish. Here we are. We have got Anne Enright, The Wren, This from Jonathan Cape. And got orange covers today. Anne Enright can write a shopping list and I will read it. And I know I've said that for Sigrid Nunes. I've said that for a few writers, for most of my Irish writers. This do be true. I think she's having a lot of fun with this one. You'll know her from she's Booker Prize winner. And her last one, The Actress, was very much this this kind of claustrophobic feel of mother-daughter relationship. So she has gone back to this territory, but we're really looking at, I think, the effects of living with or in the shadow of a famous poet, male, and the kind of knock-on effects of his, not just his hubris, but also his brilliance, and how his leaving them greatly affects his daughter Carmel, and by extension his granddaughter, who is an absolutely fabulous character, Nell, because I think Enright's having fun too with how she's writing this and how she's experimenting with the voice of Nell, who's a young woman in her 20s and who is in a kind of also in a relationship where you feel she's being manipulated. It's vaguely narcissistic, and how well she is or isn't dealing that. How important is her physical relationship, and for Carmel, how important is the physicality of her relationship with her daughter and other people who may or not pop into her life. What was the most striking about this is Enright's voice for Phil McDara, who is the poet. And I, like many people later confessed, had to look up Phil McDara and make sure he wasn't real, because there is nothing, everything in this writing leads you to believe that this is a completely researched person. But Anne Enright has just made him up. And his voice is unique. It just cuts in there and you're sort of going, oh, this is amazing poetry. But it's all Anne Enright. And she's interested in what words we use, what are the words we say, how important is it if I name my emotions? The world goes on no matter how beautifully I write about it. Lots of things come together. It's a very nice set of relationships, because Carmel, the daughter, is not... There's another daughter who passionately believes that the father's all good and that the mother had made life complicated. You kind of feel that this Phil McDarragh kind of hollowed out the usefulness of people and fed that into his writing, and then kind of, sucked out their blood and moved on. Very interesting dynamic of how these women have to adjust to each other. Again, little ripples of sameness in some of these stories, but there's nothing the same about the way Anne Enright writes. And last one up, again, this is fabulous. The last one up is, of course, you know what I feel about Claire Keegan. And small things like these. And on Colleen Kuhn, but this one, So Late in the Day, it's a little late. I mean, that is little, but it's compact. It has absolutely blinking everything in there. And it's a book that I read going, hang on, wait a minute, I know this person. So we're looking at someone called Cahill, who is going through his kind of office day and going back to his Arklow house. And, his mind takes him back to he almost married someone, and why didn't he? And I think the joy of Keegan is that almost every single sentence sends you off on a journey of its own. So it may look like there aren't that many words in there, but there are so many thoughts and so many other stories and so much to relate to and link. And it's just astonishing. There are stories within stories within stories. It's fabulous, and she's just pinpointed this kind of, not misogyny, but you learn that Cahill, and maybe, but the way he looks at what he needs to give is something that he needs to re-examine. And does he manage to do that? Another gem, and that will make everybody happy. So there you go. That's me pile. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you all again soon.